Hello, Mary Meet. So today I want to discuss something that's unfortunately somewhat popular, and that are the various occult games that a lot of people play, especially teenagers. But there's quite a few older people that do it too. And then I'm thinking about things like the Three Kings, the Midnight Man, uh, Bloody Mary. There's a ton of them. And I think it's a very, very bad idea to play with those things when the goal is just to scare yourself. Now, some of it, like for example, the Three Kings game, is more of a way of divination, a somewhat unsafe form of divination, but still divination, so it at least has a purpose besides just Russian roulette with magic. But the others are really just there to scare yourself. And I guess that the motivation a lot of people have to do those things are the same as for base jumping and those kinds of things. It's an adrenaline rush. However, it is very, very unsafe. Now, granted, for most people that tries such things, absolutely nothing will happen because magic requires first of all, it very often requires a bit of skill and it requires an intent. And if you do not take it seriously, then the intent very often isn't there, and all it becomes is a silly game. However, if you take it a little bit seriously, or you have a bit of talent and such things, you can end up in some trouble. Now, generally speaking, that trouble will not be that will come a lady out of the mirror and rip your face off, and so on and so forth. For the most part, what will happen is that you attract negative energy to yourself, negative energy that can drain you, bring bad luck in your life, those kinds of things. In addition, something that can happen is that you will scare yourself shitless. I mean, and that can happen whether or not you actually manage to do something occult with it or not. I mean, like my mother told me that when she was a little girl, several of her friends had been playing with the Ouija board and just playing around with it. And one of them had gotten a message that she would die on the toilet. So of course she was terrified of going to relieve herself for years to come. And it's just unnecessary. I feel that the occult is amazing. I think magic is a great tool that can benefit anyone, whatever or not you believe it has a supernatural um, that it works on supernatural principles or just on a psychological one. I do think that magic can really, really benefit most people. However, I do think it's something that needs to be respected. Now, there are greater dangers too to these occult games. You can really, really end up in trouble. But for the most part, what will either happen is that you can scare yourself or you will attract negative energy. But yeah, now one of the one of the two more dangerous ones I would say is Bloody Mary and Three Kings. And here is why. They work on a principle of evocation. Now, some ceremonial magical groups use a process called evocation into a mirror. Now, for a lot of people, a goal with invoking or evoking spirits is to manifest them. And by manifestation means that you do not just feel that they are there or hear a voice in your head or something like that. They take a form that you can see. This can be a form in smoke or it can be you form anything. And one method that is quite popular, especially for evocation, is to manifest them in a mirror. So evoking something into a mirror will then say that you invoke it, evoke it, from yourself. Now, invocation is when you draw something from an outside source and bring it into yourself. Invocation. And a vocation is when you bring something from inside yourself and manifest it outwards. Now, a very common occult concept is the concept of a macrocosmos and a microcosmos. And by this concept, everything in the entire universe is also reflected inside of us. This can be represented by, for example, when you look at, very often when you see a tree of life, a Kabbalistic tree of life, you will see that within each separa there are a tree of life. And within each of the separa of those, there are a tree of life, meaning that it's all manifested. And as such, the gods, spirits, demons, angels, and so on that you might want to communicate with also exists within you. So invoking them into a mirror or smoke or whatever, invoking them would mean bringing them into the surface so that you can communicate with them. Now, this is not something I recommend doing unless you have training to do so. I have quite a few years behind my belt when it comes to the occult. I'm not messing with that. And really, that is in a way what you are doing, because when you look, mirrors have been used in magic for a long time. And when you look in a mirror long enough, you will start to see things in it. This is a basic scrying. But when you try to summon something into a mirror, especially when you look at it, usually what you're doing is you're summoning it or invoking it from yourself. The problem is that this can then really mess with your psyche. Because you bring out a personality, a different personality from yourself, and manifesting it. And unless you know what you are doing, that can mess you up. So, with, for example, the Bloody Mary ritual, what you in essence are doing is that you're trying to evoke a negative spirit from inside yourself, from inside your psyche, a different personality that is a vengeful ghost, basically, or vengeful spirit, and invoking it from your personality. That's not very smart. You're doing something similar with the Three Kings. It is basically a divinatory ritual where you communicate with spirits, but since it is based on your reflection within a mirror, generally, while it can be an invocation, it's generally an evocation of these spirits from the microcosmos inside of you. And you should know what you are doing before you do that. So, yeah, like I said, again, when I mention this, I do not think that people should then try to evoke this without having proper knowledge. And really, there's so many other things you can do for kicks playing around with this. And yeah, another game that's very popular currently are the Midnight game. The Midnight game is the Midnight Man, the Midnight Man. Now, it's said to be an old pagan punishment ritual. I can never say yes or no, but I can say that I've been a pagan for quite some time, and I have studied quite a bit about older pagan religions, and I've never heard of it before. But basically, what you do is that you basically summon you try to summon an entity that will then hunt you and try to drive you insane. So it becomes a sort of cat and mouse game within your house until such and such time has passed and you are safe. And yeah, most likely you will not be able to summon an entity that can physically harm you. But here's the point. Even if, let's say that it was all made up by somebody and this game is just made up. That so many people play this game. Give power to that myth. It sort of creates this entity. Let me tell you about an experiment that was done in a university. I forgot the name about it, but anyway, they were studying paranormal phenomena, and they decided, can we create a ghost? So they created a myth about a ghostly apparition. They spoke about having seen this, of course. In the beginning, they were just bullshitting it. They just made things up about seeing this ghost and so on and so forth. But after a while, they started having real experiences. Things happened around the lab. They saw what they had basically made up because their belief created this empathy. So chances are that right now there are a midnight man, and an entity who wishes to punish you and wishes to scare you and harm you and drive you insane is probably not something you want to invite into your home. And also remember that very often when you invite something into your home, even after you've done playing that game, the energies will linger. So, yeah, there's a number of these games. There's one where you create a doll that's supposed to run around and try to kill you. There's a lot of these occult games. And I think it's about as safe as running around and playing with a loaded gun. No, a gun can be an amazing tool. You can use it to defend yourself. You can use it to hunt food. You can have a lot of fun on a firing range. But if you don't treat such a tool with respect, you'll end up killing yourself or other people. And it's a bit the same concept. Don't mess with these things. And really, I don't see that deal. Why would you want to try to summon something that wants to hurt you? If you need that kind of excitement in your life, go parachuting or base jumping or something like that. And if you're interested in the occult, learn about it. Now, since I know there are quite a few people that will not take such warnings seriously, let me at least urge you to learn a bit about occult before you try it, so that you can set up protections and properly cleanse yourself afterwards. So yeah, the dangers of such games are A. Those that deals with evocation into mirrors can mess up your psyche seriously. 2. When you try to summon something to do negative things to you, to others, and so on, that brings negative energy with it. That negative energy can linger. Now that can create feeling of tiredness, it can feed off your energy. And while the chances that you will get seriously hurt are extremely small, it is still not something you want. Me, even if you are not able to contact something occult, chances are you will be able to scare yourself very, very badly, which isn't good. And D, if you manage to get into contact with actual occult beings, they don't like being mocked any more than human beings do. Imagine this. It's Friday night, you are playing a computer game, or going out to see a movie, or minding your own business, and then somebody calls your name and says, come over here. And when you come over there, people just sit there and laugh and think, I didn't think you would come, and I'm gonna just have some fun. I would just want to do that to see if I could get the contact with you. And so, when you get pissed off, why would you think a spiritual entity wouldn't get pissed off? And again, your typical horror movie situation where these entities rip your face off and eat your heart or whatever they decide to do are very, very, very unlikely to happen. Generally, what happens is general negativity in the life, and you don't want to experience that. You don't want to have that in your life. So generally, if you want to experience something occult, take the time to learn it properly. Buy a deck of tarot cards, start practicing with that. Buy a book of witchcraft, start practicing that. It's a great tool, but it needs to be approached with respect. Because those occult games are not a good idea. Now, are there occult games that are completely fine? Sure there are. For example, very often when my mother and I watch game shows, we don't do that very often, but at times we like to try to psychically predict who will win and all of those sort of things. That's a great way to train your abilities, and it can be a lot of fun. The same can things like, for example, working with somebody and trying to contact one another in your sleep, having, let's say, at 3 o'clock I will think of you and I'll think of a number, and then you see if you can manage to find the same number. All of those sorts of things, that's completely fine. It's great ways to hone your abilities. But basically mocking negative energies and negative entities just for the hell of it, that's just not wise. It's not, first of all, it's extremely disrespectful to the spirit world, and it really puts you in risk. It's not something that you should do. And if you are determined to do it anyway, learn about occult first so you can set up protections, so that you can learn what of those rules and things that keep you safe will actually help keep you safe, and what rules and such of the games that they say will keep you safe are just bullshit. You need to learn how to cleanse yourself and the space you have been used afterwards. Do it properly or don't do it. And also try to show these spirits respect. They are thinking, feeling entities that are as deserving of respect as physical beings are. So yeah, that was what I wanted to say. This is not to try to force my opinion on you, it's not to sit on my high horse, it's just to give a friendly warning. Don't mess around with things like this. It's disrespectful, it's dangerous, and really there are no good point in it. If you want to see if there's something supernatural, do it the right way and learn how to approach it, the supernatural and the spiritual, in a proper way. You have had a great day, and blessed be.